on Sunday mornings about living a life of work, living a life of purpose and meaning to the kingdom of God. And we've been using the book of Philippians as our guide for that. Paul had written the book of Philippians as a guide to a church that he loved dearly about what it meant to live the Christian life, what it meant to live a life of meaning and purpose. Well, today we're going to flip back a little bit and we're going to find out what God himself has to say about living a life of purpose and living a life of meaning. And one of the things that we do as Christians that give purpose and meaning to our life is that we prepare through our lives the generations that follow. I mean, that is what we do. We gather together, we learn, we study, and through that we then educate those that come behind us, whether they're younger folks, whether they're newer Christians. That's what we do. Our lives are a testimony to others. And so I wonder if we really understand that the way we are living is something that someone is watching. It's going to be something that our children and grandchildren and new Christians are going to look and they're going to say, I know what Jesus can do for me because I've seen what he can do for others. And I want us to take a look today at the book of Joshua for that. I want us to look specifically at the book, the chapter 4 of Joshua. Joshua begins, of course, with the crossing of the Jordan, right? He takes over for Moses, and then they cross the Jordan into Canaan, and they're supposed to conquer that land. Well, at the very beginning of chapter 4, God lays out a way that we are going to remember that. We're going to talk today about stacking your stones. About stacking your stones. What are we leaving to those who follow us as a testimony to God's faithfulness? I mean, God instructed the Israelites to assemble a memorial to recall the acts of tremendous faithfulness that God showed in their lives. We are designed to remember things, right? That's important to us. God gave us that blessing. Both remember good things and bad things, because all the stuff that we remember, the experiences that we have, help us to grow. And as we grow, we learn. And as we learn, we develop as disciples. They are internal monuments to the experiences in our lives. And we use those memorials to teach others about things that are important to us. In the book of Joshua, we see God instructing the nation of Israel to construct its very first memorial. And it's a memorial to remind them of his faithfulness and his power in leading them through the obstacles that they have been through and into his promise. And as he was doing that, he told them why they should remember. If you have your Bibles today, you'll look at Joshua chapter 4, beginning in verse 1. Now when all the nation had finished crossing the Jordan, the Lord spoke to Joshua, saying, Take for yourselves 12 men from the people, one man from each tribe, and command them, saying, Take up for yourselves 12 stones from here out of the middle of the Jordan, from the place where the priest's feet are standing firm, and carry them over with you, and lay them down in the lodging place where you will lodge tonight. So Joshua called the 12 men whom he appointed from the sons of Israel, one man from each tribe. And Joshua said to them, Cross again to the ark of the Lord your God into the middle of the Jordan, and each of you take up a stone on his shoulder according to the number of tribes of the sons of Israel. Let this be a sign among you, so that when your children ask later, saying, What do these stones mean to you? Then you shall say to them, Because the waters of the Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord, where it crossed the Jordan. The waters of the Jordan were cut off. So these stones shall become a memorial to the sons of Israel forever. God was going to do a huge miracle in the lives of the people of Israel. They weren't simply going to wade across the Jordan River. God was going to dry up the river at this point so that they would walk across into the land he had promised them on dry land. You can tell them what I did in your life and in their lives. It's the same with us. God places stones that we will use to mark great events in our life. God is actively involved in every aspect of our lives, particularly helping us to realize his presence and his provision. Those are two things he wants to make sure that we know. Number one, that he is here, that he cares, and that he is going to provide for us. And when we know that, we will communicate that to the people who come behind us. because that's important. It's important to us, and we want it to be important to the generations that come after. Have you ever looked back on a life event and seen the hand of God? I believe everyone here can say that they have looked at something in their lives and they have seen the way God has moved in a mighty way in their lives. And when we do that, we need to be ready to set up a memorial to that moment. We need to be ready to take that moment and consider it a stone and put that stone someplace where everyone can see it. Because someone will eventually ask you, what do these stones mean? And these stones are all the times that God has walked with you, that God has done for you and you couldn't do for yourself, that God has provided and prepared for you. And we're supposed to use those moments of God's provision in our lives to show others His glory. We are supposed to be a reflection of God's glory, are we not? We're supposed to do that. God has created us to reflect His greatness. Not to create greatness for ourselves, but to serve as a mirror, as a window for others to see what God can do. God plans our moments. God plans our moments. He plans our path. We see, beginning in verse 8, going all the way through verse 19, how God did what He said He would do. He said, okay, I'm getting ready to drive the river. I want you to carry the Ark of the Covenant across this dry riverbed to the other side with me. Remember, the Ark of the Covenant in the Old Testament symbolized the presence of God. So He said, I want you to get the priest and I want you to carry it across. And when you do that, pick up a stone. I want you to go back and pick a stone up from the middle of the river and bring it over there with you into the new land. And so they did exactly what He said to do. They carried the Ark of the Covenant across exactly as He said. He dried up the river exactly as He said. And the moment the last priest stepped across, the water began to flow again. God had a plan for these people. From the foundation of the world, God has a plan for you. And that plan for you is to be a productive, vital member of the kingdom of God. We're supposed to take what we learn and share it. Take what we've experienced and share it. God provides each one of us with moments in our lives where His glory can be displayed and our dependence on Him can be revealed. The people of Israel couldn't have done what God wanted them to do without Him. Important lesson for us to learn, right? God's will for our lives is not a secret. He wants each one of us to know Him in such a way that we will all know His plan and we will act according to His instructions. God's will for our life is not a secret. God reveals to us as we are able to understand. As we grow as Christians, God continues to reveal more and more of Himself to us. And what are we supposed to do with that? Well, we're supposed to use it as an example. We are living examples of what God can do in the life of a broken, flawed person. I don't want to offend anybody, but we're all broken, flawed people here. Okay? The people of Israel had proven time and time again that they were broken, flawed people. But God had a plan for them, just as God does for you. And as we do that, we can see clearly the way God made for us. And those looking at us can see God's hand leading the way. You see, our experiences simply aren't just for us. Our experiences are for others as well. Because our lives are a witness. Our lives are testimonies. Let's go back to verse 50. It says, Now the Lord said to Joshua, Command the priests who carry the ark of the testimony, that they come up from the Jordan. So Joshua commanded the priests, saying, Come up from the Jordan. And it came about when the priests who carried the ark of the covenant of the Lord had come up from the middle of the Jordan, and the soles of the priests' feet were lifted up to the dry ground, that the waters of the Jordan returned to their place and went over all its banks as before. Now the people came up from the Jordan on the 10th of the first month and camped at Gilgal on the eastern edge of Jericho. Those 12 stones, which they had taken up from the Jordan, Joshua set up at Gilgal. And he said to the sons of Israel, when your children ask their fathers in time to come, saying, what are these stones? Then you shall inform your children, saying, Israel crossed this Jordan on dry ground. For the Lord your God dried up the waters of the Jordan before you until you had crossed, just as the Lord your God had done to the Red Sea, which he had dried up before us until we had crossed, that all the peoples of the earth may know that the hand of the Lord is mighty, so that you may fear the Lord your God forever. God wanted them to know why he had done it. He wanted them to be prepared to share about God's provision. He didn't just call the priests in and say, I want you to share with the people. He told Joshua this was for everyone, so that when your children ask, what does this mean? What are these stones? What does this mean? That you can tell them about what the Lord your God has done. Every one of us has a story like that. Every one of us have opportunities to take the things that God has done in our lives and use them to teach someone else about the power, the beauty, the majesty of the God we love and the God who loves us. You ever thought about your life as a teachable moment? One big old long teachable moment. God's plan for us as Christians is to live and to be led in such a way that those who come after us and those who don't know God can see that our lives are different. When we build those memorials to God's great victories in our lives, they're going to serve as a guidepost to others. The stones of our lives, those times of remembrance of God's faithfulness to us, serve as a billboard of our relationship to God. That's why he wanted that set up so everybody could see it. God doesn't want what he does in our lives to be hidden. He wanted the people of Israel to be able to publicize what God had done for them. And he wants the same for us. Our family, the character that he helps us to develop day after day after day. Our life experiences illustrate the times of our lives that God has kept his promises to us. This is about God keeping his promises. Has God kept promises to you? He's not finished with any of us. He's not done keeping promises, and he's not done growing us, and he's not done maturing us. But just think back in your life at the times that God has answered prayer, that God has kept his promises to us. God promises to us the basis of our faith. That God is who he says he is and will do what he said he would do. And that is exactly what these stones are teaching. That God is who he says he is. That he will do what he says he will do. And that becomes a part of who we are. It becomes a part of our character and our makeup. It helps inform our ethics, how we look at the world. By remembering times of God's faithfulness to us, we can be a powerful witness to the miraculous and transformational power of God in our lives and in the lives of others. And so I'll ask you, do others, when they look at your life's memorials, see God's handprint? When they look at the things that you have placed in front of them as a testimony of your witness about who God is, do they see God's handprint? Do they see his love? Do they see his provision? Do they see his watch care over each one of us? Individually. And what about us as a church? When they look at us as a church, do they see God's handprint on the collective memorials that we put together as a body of Christ? Do they see people who have been given much and who desire to give back much? Or do they see people who have been given much and choose to keep it to themselves? We're all called to be witnesses, to be testimonies. That's not something just for the priestly class. That's something for all of us. To love and to serve and to reach as God has empowered us, as God has enabled us, using the experiences that he has provided for each one of us, whatever those are, good, bad,
Every experience we have builds us into who we are.